Barbara. How are you this morning? Are you sniffling and sneezing? Are allergies getting to you? I know a lot of people are really having a hard time with all that pollen. Have you seen all that yellow everywhere? I know that it's uncomfortable. It might be making your eyes itchy and it might be making your throat a little bit scratchy. But did you know that is part of God's plan? It is. It's not part of God's plan to make you miserable, but it is a part of God's plan to keep things beautiful. All of that pollen is doing a very important job. It is making springtime come. It is making things beautiful. It is making things grow and bloom and continue on as God created it. So while it is annoying and it's making us a little bit uncomfortable, hang in there because it is a purpose, just like we have a purpose that God has for us. So we are going to continue our lessons after Easter. In our Sunday school series. Jesus is still here on earth. He has risen from the grave and he has come back to talk to his disciples and the people that he loves just a little bit more before he goes up to heaven. So how about we start off with our Bible verse? If you can read along with me. If not, I want you to listen, okay? When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him. "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." A second time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter felt hurt because he'd said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep." And that is from the book of John, chapter 21, verses 15 through 17. So last week in Sunday school, we were talking about how Jesus has come back. He's risen from the dead, and he has come back to talk to his disciples a couple of times. And during this particular time, he's on the shore while his disciples have gone. They're getting really fidgety. They don't really know what to do. And so they said, "You know what? We're going fishing." And they went out to fish and they didn't catch anything. They were out all night and they didn't catch anything. And there was someone on the shoreline and he says, cast your nets to the other side. And then what happens? You remember? They pull in a whole bunch of fish. And they know instantly that this is not just some stranger. Who is it? It's Jesus. They know it's Jesus because this has happened before. And he says to them, "Bring your fish in. Come have breakfast for me." Even though fish is not what I would want for breakfast, I think that if I got to eat with Jesus, I would probably eat anything that he had to offer. So let's refresh our minds with the story. This part of the Bible story is going to pick up during that breakfast. As they stood by the fire, no disciple dared ask, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. Jesus took the bread and gave it to them. He did the same with the fish. When they finished breakfast, Jesus spoke to Peter. "Peter, do you love me more than these fish?" "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." "Then feed my lambs," Jesus replied. Then he asked Peter the same question a second time. "Do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." "Then tend my sheep." Then, for a third time, Jesus asked, "Do you love me?" Peter felt hurt that Jesus had asked this so many times. "Lord," he answered, "you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." "I'll tell you the truth, Peter. When you were young, you did whatever you wished. But when you're old, it will be different. Someone else will take you where you don't want to go." This meant that Peter would someday be killed because he served God. Jesus did so many things. The world can't hold all the books that could be written about him. And that is very true. Jesus did lots and lots of things. Now, before we get too much further, let's talk about which part of the Bible does this story come from. Let's look at our clues from the book of John. The main characters are Jesus and Peter in this particular story. The other disciples are there as well. Based on those clues, which part of the Bible does this story come from? If you said the New Testament, you are correct. Any story that has Jesus in it comes from the New Testament. You guys are catching on really, really fast. I know that you're getting that down. Why do you think Jesus asked Peter 3 times? Do you ever say to your mom, "Mom, do you love me?" My kids say that to me. Usually, though, they say, "Do you love me?" before they're going to tell me something they did that they shouldn't have done. Do you do that? Does mom or dad ever say, "Do you love me?" to you? Do they usually ask you 3 times in a row? Probably not. Why do you think? All right, some of my big kids can probably answer this. Think hard. Why do you think he asked him 3 times? He didn't just say, "Peter, do you love me?" Why do you think he didn't take the first answer? He said yes the first time, didn't he? And then he asked him a second time. And what did Peter say? He said yes. But he asked him again. Do you think he didn't believe him? Oh, he believed him. But why do you think he asked 3 times? He asked 3 times for a very specific reason. He says, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me?" Now, I want you to think back. Think back in your mind, rewind time to the Easter story before Jesus is crucified. And they're sitting around the table at the Last Supper. And Jesus knows what's going to happen. And he broke the bread and he shared the wine. What does he say to Peter? And Peter, remember, Peter was like his closest one. Peter is like his bestie. They're best friends. So what does he say to Peter? Do you remember? He says, "Peter, you will deny me 3 times before the cock crows." And what does that mean? That means you will tell people that you don't know me and that you have no idea who I am 3 times before morning comes, right? And Peter tells him, no, I wouldn't do that, Lord, absolutely not. And then what happens? That does in fact happen, doesn't it? Some people, remember, he's arrested and he's brought before some trials and he's put down in the cell. And then as the people are gathering around, they find Peter and they say, he was with them. And Peter says, what? He says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And this is going to happen 2 more times after that. And then he's going to hear what? He's going to hear the rooster and he's going to realize what he did. And he is going to feel so bad because he really does love Jesus. He was scared. And we are human people and we make mistakes, don't we? Do you make mistakes? Raise your hand if you make mistakes. We make mistakes and we feel really bad about them, don't we? We want to make them right and we want to make them better. So Jesus is going to give Peter an opportunity. So we know that 3 times Peter made a mistake, didn't he? So I put 3 little roosters there. So one time a woman says, he was with Jesus. And Peter says, no, wasn't me. No, I don't know what you're talking about. And then later on in the night, someone else will say, hey, I've seen you around that Jesus fellow. I'm pretty sure you were with him. You were with him. You were with them, weren't you? And he says, no, that wasn't me. And then later on in the evening, before he's crucified, someone else says, you talk like him. You look like him. You're one of them. You are one of those people that was hanging out with the Jewish teacher. That's you. And Peter is going to say, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's not me. And then the rooster's going to crow. So 3 times. So when Jesus is sitting with Peter and having their fish breakfast, and they had some bread too, he's going to say, he's going to say, Peter, do you love me? And he's going to say, yes. So that's going to take away one of those. It's going to take away one of those mistakes, isn't it? It's kind of going to cross it out a little bit. This is what Jesus is going to do. And then what is he going to do? He's going to ask him again. Peter, do you love me? Peter says, yes, Lord. Okay, well, we're going to wipe away that other mistake. And then what is he going to do? He's going to ask him a 3rd time. Now, at this point, Peter doesn't know what's happening. He's starting to feel a little bit upset about it. He's like, well, Jesus, you know I love you. Of course, you know everything. And what does that do? It kind of wipes away that's what Jesus is trying to tell Peter. It'll take him a few minutes for him to understand that. But what he's saying is, I know you love me, Peter. And you're forgiven. I forgive you. I know you were human and I know you were scared. And I'm going to take away all that yucky that you feel inside because you deny me. Because I know you really do love me. And you said it out loud and I know what your heart feels. And you made a mistake, just like everybody else makes mistakes. So Jesus gave him an opportunity to not only say he was sorry, but to remind him that he loved him. And it gave Jesus an opportunity to say that you are forgiven. And by doing all that, it erased away all that yucky. You can't even see, look, you can't even see those roosters in the background anymore. And what was all that was left? And there was nothing but love that was left. Now, even though Jesus did say, "Do you love me?" and Peter said, "Yes," that wasn't the end of it, was it? What else did he say after that? He said, "Then feed my sheep, tend my sheep." What does that mean? Do you know how to feed sheep? Now, I have to say that being over at Mr. Dvorak's place, they have lots of sheep. And they're fun. Have you seen the picture where I get to hold the baby sheep? The baby lamb. It's really fun over there. And sheep are so funny. They can be very, very loud. And they follow each other everywhere. They don't really let you pet them. They're not petty ones. They're the goats will let you pet them. And Brownie, the cow, sometimes let you pet. But the sheep really aren't like that. They kind of go off on their own. But they stay together. So you can't really feed them. They don't feed like that. They have a trough of feed that's in there. But mostly, what do they eat? Have you ever seen what a sheep eats? They just kind of eat the grass and the clover that's on the ground. So is that what Jesus wants Peter to do? Does he want him to go off and be a shepherd and gather a whole bunch of sheep and make sure they have enough grass and feed? No, that's not at all what he's talking about. What is it that he wants Peter to do? Who are the sheep? We are kind of the sheep. The people are kind of the sheep. But he's also talking about the disciples. So he's kind of saying, hey, I'm going to pass this down to you, Peter. This is now going to be your job because I'm going up to heaven to be with God the Father. Now, I've taught you everything I know, and I love you, and I'm forgiving you, and now I'm putting this in your hands. This is going to be your job now. You and the rest of the disciples are going to go out, and you're going to keep doing what I was doing. You're going to tell everybody about who God is and how much he loves them and how much he wants to stay connected to them. And you're going to make sure that that relationship stays connected and that as many people as possible know who God is and what it was that I was trying to do while I was here. So that's what he means when he says, feed my sheep. He doesn't really mean go find some grass and put it in a bucket or, go get feed or go out and be a shepherd. He wants him to be a shepherd like Jesus was a shepherd. You know how we talked about the Lord is my shepherd. So he's telling Peter, now that's your turn to be a shepherd of people. Just like you were a fisher of men, now you are a shepherd of people. And you'll kind of head up the disciples. You'll kind of be the leader now because I am going to go up and I won't be here on earth with you anymore. And I think that Peter finally says, oh, I get it now. So Peter has had kind of an interesting relationship with Jesus. He has been a best friend and he has been beside him through all of these things that Jesus has done. He's done miracles and he's preached and he's taught and he's calmed waters and calmed storms, and he's done so many different things. And I love the relationship between Peter and Jesus because I think of them as what we would call best friends. I know that guys and boys aren't best friends the same way that maybe girls are best friends. They're kind of different, but I love their relationship. And I think that it's a very neat one. And I found this really great book that I thought would help explain how Jesus and Peter loved each other so very, very much. It's called A Friend Who Forgives by Dan DeWitt and Catalina Echeverry. A long time ago, there was a man named Peter who was best friends with Jesus. Peter was a fisherman. He was strong and brave, but he often said the wrong thing. Do you ever talk before you think? That's what Peter did again and again and again. Peter loved fish. In fact, one day he and Jesus had fish for breakfast. Fish for breakfast? That's weird. But we will save that part of the story until the end. On the day when Jesus first called Peter to follow him, can you guess what Peter was doing? That's right, Peter was fishing. Follow me and I will make you a fisher of men, Jesus told him. Can you imagine that? Peter fishing For men? Jesus explained that just as Peter liked to search for fish, Jesus had come to search for people who needed forgiveness. Peter loved being friends with Jesus. He saw Jesus do lots of amazing things. One time, Peter's mother-in-law was sick. Jesus healed her. Another time, Peter was about to drown in a storm. Jesus saved him. Slowly, Peter realized that Jesus was more than a friend. He was God. He would never let Peter down. But sometimes Peter let Jesus down. Like the time Jesus explained to his friends that he had to die on the cross, but that he would come back to life to offer forgiveness. All of you will run away. You're going to say we're not friends, Jesus said. Peter spoke up right away. He did that a lot. I will never do that, Peter said. But Jesus told him, before the rooster crows in the morning, you will say 3 times that you are not my friend. I would never do that. Jesus is my best friend, Peter thought. When soldiers came to take Jesus to the cross, Peter pulled out his sword to stop them. Put your sword away, Peter, Jesus said. My Father says this must happen. Jesus let the soldiers take him to a courtyard to stand trial. Peter followed from far away. Aren't you one of Jesus' friends? A young girl asked as she opened the gate for Peter to enter the courtyard. What do you think Peter said? Nope, I do not know Jesus. It was a cold night, so Peter walked over to a fire where some people were warming themselves. Aren't you one of Jesus' friends? Someone asked Peter. What do you think Peter said? No, I don't know Jesus. Then someone else stepped forward and looked closely at Peter. Yes, you are one of Jesus' friends, aren't you? He said. What do you think Peter said? No, I don't know Jesus. Right then, at that very moment, a rooster crowed. Jesus turned around and looked straight at Peter. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said. Before the rooster crows, you will say 3 times that you are not my friend. Peter was so sad. He knew he had failed Jesus again and again and again. He didn't just need to find other people who needed forgiving. He needed forgiving too. Peter felt terrible. He ran out of the courtyard and he cried and he cried and he cried. Peter had let his best friend down, and now it was too late because the soldiers had taken Jesus away to be killed. But Peter didn't stay sad because Jesus didn't stay dead. 3 days later was the first Easter Sunday when Jesus came back to life to offer people forgiveness. But would he forgive Peter for failing him so badly? One day, Jesus went looking for Peter. Where do you think Jesus found him? That's right. Peter and his friends were fishing. Jesus called to them from the beach. Peter jumped out of the boat and into the water and rushed to the beach to see Jesus. And this is where Jesus and Peter had fish for breakfast. Fish for breakfast? That's weird. Peter was happy to see Jesus alive. But would Jesus forgive him? Peter wasn't sure. Maybe Jesus wouldn't want to talk to him. Maybe Jesus wouldn't want to be friends with him. But yes, Jesus did want to talk to Peter. And yes, Jesus did want to forgive Peter. Wow. And since Peter had said he didn't know Jesus 3 times, Jesus gave Peter the chance to say 3 times, I love you, Jesus. That's how Peter became a forgiven fisher of men. Peter spent the rest of his life telling people about his best friend, Jesus. He told them that if they put their trust in Jesus, he would forgive them, and again and again and again. That's because Jesus was Peter's best friend. He forgave him again and again and again. And if you trust in Jesus, he will forgive you too. Again and again and again. I loved that book. I think it sums up everything really, really well, because that's exactly what Jesus does. Because we make lots of mistakes, don't we? We mess up over and over and over again, and we don't mean to. And we try to fix them. We should always try to fix them. We should never just say, oh, I messed up. Jesus, forgive me. We need to try to do better. We need to try to learn from our mistakes and try to do better. But that is what God is going to do. He is going to forgive us. Let's always make sure we learn from those mistakes, though, right? Absolutely. So I asked the Sunbeams singers to sing a very pretty hymn for you because I wanted it to remind you of what Jesus was doing with Peter. He was calling Peter to be the leader now. Now that Jesus needed to go up to heaven, he's calling Peter to be the leader. And it's a very, very pretty hymn that I've always loved. So listen to the Sunbeam Singers. Thank you, Sunbeam Singers. I love that hymn, and I hope that you liked it too. Do you remember it? Have you heard that one before? Maybe in church sometimes when we sing it? I hope that you like that one as well. And Miss Ann Dvorak is back with us this week, and she and Tobias are going to be in the church parking lot. But you can't tell it's the church parking lot because it is so pretty. Spring and all that yucky pollen has brought out beautiful greens and all sorts of colors to make us remember that Easter is a time of rebirth and things blooming and things coming alive once again. So listen for this week's devotion from Miss Ann Dvorak.
Hello, everybody. Can you guess where we are today?
At the church.
Yeah, at church. Whereabouts at church? In the parking lot? In the graveled parking lot. So here we are. It was raining earlier, but now it's cleared off and the birds are singing, and Tobias and I are out here. Well, in our Bible lesson today in chapter 21 of John, we are still by the Sea of Tiberias. You know, last week we were having breakfast with Jesus, and some of his disciples were with him, and we're still there. And in verse 15, Jesus is going to ask Simon Peter a question. And it says, Simon Peter, son of John, do you love me? And that's like Jesus speaks to me saying, Anne, do you love me? And the reply from Simon Peter was, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And Jesus said to him, feed my lambs. 3 times Jesus asked Simon Peter, do you love me? And Simon said, yes, I do. And then Jesus' reply to Simon Peter was, feed my lambs, tend my sheep. And that's what Jesus is speaking to us. We need to take care of the sheep, which are all of us, are Jesus's, the people. Tobias is a sheep, lamb, I am, Mrs. Shipley, Pastor Couchner. We are all Jesus' sheep. And he's asking us to take care of them, to take care of each other. Tobias, how do you think is a way that we can take care of each other? Do you have an idea? What can you do to help take care of Mom? What can you do?
Helping her.
Oh my gosh, that is perfect answer. Helping her when she says clean up the room. That's a good idea. And some other ways, do you ever bring a canned good to church to help the hungry? Yeah, he says he does. So that's the way that we answer when Jesus asks us, do you love me? And we say yes. And he's telling each one of us to take care of each other. And that's what we need to remember today. It can be a smile. Now, today I went on my way here to church and donated some clothes and shoes and books to a yard sale that's going to happen at another church down the road. I think they're going to be excited to get some of my stuff. But that's what Jesus wants us to do, to share and to love. So it's time now for a word of prayer. I'm going to hold Tobias' hand today. Yay, it's nice and warm. Okay, Tobias, would you like to start us off? Dear Jesus, help us each day to love everybody, to share our food and clothes, and just enjoy life. We ask this in your name. And we both said together, Amen.
Amen.
Yay.
Thank you, as always, Ms. Dvorak. It's such a wonderful time to meet up with her each and every week, to take time, to have time for her and I together, as well as learning these lessons. She put so much time and energy to make sure that you are getting the Word of God and that you're understanding what it is that we're trying to tell you. That's always our goal for you each and every week, to make sure that you are being connected to the Bible and to God and to Jesus, and that you're understanding what it is that He wants you to know. Now, I know you're back in school, and I know you're super excited about it, but it is springtime, and I know that also it's warmer outside and there's lots more things to do outside. But even though it's nice and it's beautiful, please make sure that you make time for God. Make time for Sunday school. Make time for Bible lessons. Make time for prayers. Make time for God, because He gave you that beautiful outdoors and that beautiful weather and all the spring colors, okay? Because God, we always want to thank Him. We always want to thank Him for everything that He gave us. I'm thankful that He gave us you. You are very, very special, my love.